The Bomb unearths a gripping true story of espionage at the core of the British-American atomic research programmes. Find out more in Season 2 of The Bomb, a podcast from the BBC World Service, available now.
Hello, and thank you for downloading this episode of the Witness History podcast from the BBC World Service. We're taking you back 49 years to when the Soviet Union's most successful TV series was broadcast. It was a spy series called 17 Moments of Spring. The main character was a secret agent known as Max Otto von Stierlitz, who infiltrated Nazi high command during World War II. He was Russia's answer to James Bond. Eleonora Shashkova, who played Max's wife Alexandra, spoke to Dina Newman in 2017.
In the 1970s, the USSR needed a hero. Brave, with impeccable communist credentials, the strong and silent type. Stierlitz would inspire many young Russians, even, as we will show later, one Vladimir Putin.
Every broadcast was quite an event. The streets were deserted, and people rushed home from work to watch the latest episode and to find out what would happen next. From the first episode, the storyline just drew you in.
An estimated 50 to 80 million viewers watched Stierlitz, an undercover Soviet agent, disrupt secret peace negotiations between the Nazis and the Americans in the spring of 1945. Eleonora Shashkova played Stierlitz's wife.
The film showed the importance of secret agents, highly respected people in our country. They were the ones who delivered important information and helped win our victory over fascism. The film instilled patriotism in the post-war generation.
The series was part of a PR campaign by the Soviet intelligence agency, the KGB, in order to improve its image and attract young and educated recruits. It gave the secret services an aura of mystique, sophistication, and professionalism. Stierlitz spent most of his time thinking and analyzing rather than performing Bond-style stunts. He had no use for expensive gadgets. He didn't even have glamorous young women to sweeten his solitary life in Berlin. Instead, he concentrated on his work, smoking, drinking coffee, and looking thoughtfully out of the window. The famous British-Soviet double agent Kim Philby, who loved the series, did nevertheless say that a spy looking so thoughtful for so long would not last in his job. Even the actor who played Stierlitz, Vyacheslav Tikhonov, felt the need for some kind of a romantic distraction for his character.
Once, Vyacheslav Tikhonov told the director, "It seems I have no life outside my work. Can you give me someone to love, somewhere to show my emotional side?" And he shared a story from a friend, a former secret agent, who had once been allowed to see his wife secretly while stationed abroad. The director, Tatiana Liasnova, said, "Bravo, this is great. This is what we will do."
In the story, Stierlitz's wife lived miles away in war-torn Russia. But the Soviet secret services brought her across the border and over to Berlin. Then they arranged for Stierlitz to see her briefly in a cafe. Stierlitz sat in the corner watching as she walked in and ordered a cup of coffee. From time to time they managed to exchange furtive glances full of love. The silent scene, which lasts 5 minutes, is one of the most famous in Soviet TV. We see his eyes, then hers, then his eyes again, and then it's over. She gets up and slowly walks out.
I don't know how Stierlitz managed to live away from his wife, but I do know that our secret agents spent many years abroad away from their families, completely alone, and focusing on nothing but work. Now, we may think that's impossible, but back then, people were different, and it was wartime after all.
Remarkably, the whole film, including the famous love scene, was filmed with just one camera. So the two actors had to be shot on two separate occasions, pretending to look at each other to maintain the continuity.
А потому что как? Тогда двух камер-то не бывало.
Of course we only had one camera at the time. All Soviet films were shot with one camera. If they wanted to film me and Stierlitz on the same day, they would have to change the whole setup. So it was easier to film me in one day and leave his scenes for the next day. We didn't know any different. Of course, we had seen some Hollywood films, but we couldn't imagine that they had used 3 cameras at once.
To make up for these technical limitations, action is mostly shown through wartime film archive, skillfully blended with black and white film footage. The archive showed fierce battles, huge bomb blasts, and masses of terrified civilians. Stierlitz's ability to ponder while all this drama was unfolding around him became the butt of countless jokes.
Stierlitz and his radio operator Kate are walking through the park. A gunshot rings out. Kate falls. Blood flows. Stierlitz, relying on his keen instincts, immediately gets suspicious. Stierlitz opens the door and the lights go on. Stierlitz closes the door and the lights go out. Stierlitz opens the door again, the light goes back on. Stierlitz closes the door, the light goes out again. Stierlitz deduces it's a refrigerator.
The series was ready for broadcast in time for Russia's Victory Day on May the 9th, 1973. But the head of the KGB at the time, Yuri Andropov, wanted to watch it personally first, so the broadcast was delayed until August that year. It was shown almost every year after that, and sometimes 3 or 4 times a year. In the early 90s, this theme tune was used again in a film about a little-known St. Petersburg city official called Vladimir Putin. St. Petersburg's mayor office had commissioned a documentary series about local politicians. Only one film got made, and it was about Vladimir Putin. This is when Putin, for the first time, publicly declared himself a former KGB operative, modeling himself on Stierlitz and even reenacting the last scene of the film. This reference to Stierlitz, who was calm, firm, decisive and professional, helped Vladimir Putin to boost his image. Years after filming the 17 Moments, Eleonora Shashkova got to see her first James Bond movie.
Ну, знаете, все-таки это...
Well, what can I say? Ours was a real drama, and they simply showed a fairy tale. You know that everything will end well, they will get together and have sex, and he will complete his task too. Even though they have lots of explosions and action and all that, it's just a bit of fun. You don't feel for the character. You don't worry about him like our audience worried. What would happen in the next episode? Will he survive? So you think 17 Moments is much higher quality than James Bond? Oh yes, much higher. And I think young people today can learn a lot from this film. How to love your country, how to risk your life for it, how to find a solution to every problem. It sets a good example.
Eleonora Shashkova spoke to Dina Newman in 2017 for that episode of the Witness History podcast from the BBC World Service.
September 1949, 4 years after atomic bombs devastated the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, specially equipped US Air Force planes have detected radiation in the atmosphere. There can only be one explanation. The Soviet Union have exploded an atomic bomb of their own. A bomb they were thought to be years away from developing. How can this have happened? The answer is chilling. Season 2 of The Bomb, a podcast from the BBC World Service, uncovers a gripping true story of espionage at the very heart of the British-American nuclear bomb programs. Search for The Bomb wherever you found this podcast.